Hey, you're watching Floyd Steinberg's YouTube channel, and these are some superb Superbooth booths 2026 edition. This time, I took my family along on the first day, and we had a great time together there. The FEZ is a nice place to be, and the venue has plenty of kid-friendly distractions on offer, so you'll stumble into mom and dads with the kids quite often. Channel and Patreon members will have full access to all the interviews here, and I'll give you a quick summary of the events in this video. Our first stop was at Instruo, which had a focus on their Pocket Scíon this year. This is a MIDI data and sound generator that converts signs of life into sound using a 5-voice polyphonic synthesizer engine and an array of sensors that you can touch or connect to anything that lives. The signals can be converted to MIDI notes or controller data or sound using various algorithms. Playing with this was strangely soothing, but be aware that the musical output of this device largely is out of your control, unless you use it as a MIDI controller specifically, which turns this into a 5-way MIDI controller. Of course, their Seashell monosynth from last year was on show as well. In the main building on the first floor, right next to Expressive E and the new Osmos MIDI controller, we bumped into Stefan Engineering from Prague, who now had a ready-for-market version of his Synth Mate on display. This is a tiny device that can be attached to your synth magnetically. It's powered by the 5-pin MIDI ports, and this can do a multitude of things. First and foremost, it can capture controller movements and then play them back in a loop, so you can easily create your own custom LFOs and envelopes. This also is a MIDI looper, which works best on polyphonic multitimbre synths. Another cool function is that you can split controllers to do multiple things at the same time. In this demo we made the pitch bend wheel also open up the filter. This product is open to developers, so you can adjust the firmware to your needs. This device definitely is worth a look and will be around $100 for early birds and $120 regular when it hits the market later this year.
Or unlink it just with the press of the shift key.
Our next stop was at Bleass, who showcased their new Spectral Resonator plugin. This will turn any ambient noise into something wonderfully musical that you can play melodies and chords with on your keyboard. Think of this as a Manqui Wingy on steroids and with the power of a DAW in its back. The sounds you can get out of this are fresh and exciting, and the plugin works especially well on drum grooves or as a vocoder. This one definitely is worth a look. The plugin will be available soon for $69.
Of the resonance, you can choose the harmonics that are applied to the resonator, so all harmonics, even harmonics, or odd harmonics, which changes the character of the sound.
Next, I visited Pete Cabaragulla's booth, who had the finished version of his Storm Summoner on display. This is a remote controller for MIDI-enabled pedals. The idea here is you mount this on your microphone stand and use it to quickly browse and recall pedal presets. The finished version comes with a big database of MIDI-enabled pedals and their respective SysEx and CC commands, so setting this up should be fairly easy. There are distance and tilt sensors on this, so you can use this for live tweaking of effect parameters easily. I will have a full review of this on my channel soon. The second product he had on display is called Skybridge. These are low-latency wireless MIDI adapters that work with minimal latency of around 2 to 3 milliseconds. The knack here is that instead of daisy-chaining MIDI devices, a parallel connection is established, so latency across a MIDI network of synthesizers or other devices will always be in a 2 to 3 milliseconds latency range, no matter how far your synth is from a main controller. Again, I will have a full review of these on my channel soon. Next, we bumped into Eva van Dijk from Ableton. who took the time to show us the stem separation feature and sample chopping and remixing on Ableton Push 3 standalone. This worked well and fairly quickly, and the results were quite convincing. The firmware update has been around since last September, and Eva has a YouTube channel with her music and Ableton tutorials that I'll link in this video's description.
So that's a cool tool, right? So now I could create a beat with this. So I could take the vocals, and now I've converted them into a simpler, and I could do a similar thing in a slice mode.
Some steps across the room, Bastl showed their new Kalimba synth. This synth has a Kalimba keyboard and it sounds just as soothing and airy as the original instrument. But with more filters and effects and all the synth power behind it. One thing both my son and me agreed upon is that the edges of the PCB tongues are quite sharp, which can feel painful to use when you're playing louder notes, especially on the shorter tongues. However, the Kalimba definitely is one of the "you have to try this" instruments of the show. As usual, Yamaha had the largest booth on show, and once again they had their knob per function panel for the Montage M series on display. Here I stumbled into Keir Darby, who not only guided me through this panel, but showed off his web app patch manager and editor for the Montage series. If you haven't already seen this, definitely give it a try. He also mentioned he's working on a similar editor for the Yamaha EX5. And he casually dropped that he got things rolling on that beefy firmware update for the Seek track that turned the drum tracks into full synth tracks. If you have not heard about that firmware update, check it out now. It definitely increased the value for money ratio of the Seek track quite a bit. Next stop was at Aircraft Design. They have built an all-analog, low-noise compressor, EQ and overdrive distortion unit that in its original form is a 19-inch rack-mounted device aimed for studio use. The demo I heard was absolutely convincing, as it turned a simple breakbeat into an explosion of mind-blowingly powerful audio. The studio rack mount is $2,000, so that's not exactly affordable, so Aircraft Design took the best parts of that circuit and turned it into a guitar pedal-sized unit that will hit the market later this year. Definitely want to keep an eye on. The analog circuitry here ensures that any distortion sounds really smooth and powerful. The axes will be around $450.
It's pretty aggressive, but I think that's okay for this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it is.
Playtronica had the new MIDI controller called Scales on show. As the name implies, these are indeed scales. You place weights upon them to trigger notes or control commands, and the devices will react accordingly. You can switch various MIDI modes like note repeats or arpeggiators, and you can chain up to 16 scales together for more polyphony. Like all of the products, Scales is playful, meditative and fun at the same time, and it certainly invites for exploration. Finally, I visited Dirtywave's booth and had a very nice talk about the past, present and future of the M8. I'll put the full interview online for members and patrons, which contains some fascinating bits of information. For example, that the M8 firmware is really pushing the limits of the teensy 4.1 MCU, so every new feature has to be fought for by heavily optimizing what's already there. Definitely worth checking out. Next up was BoBeats YouTuber meeting in the forest, which among a few new contacts and business opportunities resulted in these photos. As you see, all synth YouTubers have the same optician, obviously. While attending this meeting and while walking the venue, a lot of people came up to me to shake hands, take selfies, talk about synthesizers or open source projects, like Holger Wurzi, who ported the DX7 emulated decks to embedded devices all those years ago, thus blazing a trail for many FM synthesizers that used his source code for their own purposes. Next we stumbled into Elastic Instruments, who had their Elastic OSC software synth on display. As far as I could hear through the shuffle or noise, this is a great sounding plugin with a lot of synthesis engines, among them vector synthesis. The plugin is available now for all platforms in the app stores between $15 and $40. In the circus tent in the forest, I came across Playtronica, who had some DIY modular sequences on display. This Raspberry Pico-based collection of modules by the UK-based company is available on Thonk for £240. It comes in the form of a book that contains all the PCBs and components needed, and in the end, you get a full modular synth. Here I also met the owner of Arcane Audio, who introduced me to his Caress of Stars Eurorack sequencer. The standard feature here is the lengthy touch strip that lets you modulate sounds, sequences, probabilities and basically everything you could think of in the context of a sequencer.
For example, I'm going to pick a minor scale here. I can set a smaller CV range, so let's say 2 octaves, right? And now this will be in minor.
Zoom had their relatively new LiveTrack L12 Next on display. This is a compact 12-channel desktop mixer that also is a 14-track audio recorder. If you need a slightly smaller device, the L6 Max definitely is worth a look. Like its bigger sibling, it also has a multi-track audio recorder built in that now has dedicated controls. With its 32-bit analog-digital converters, this is a compelling offer. In the village area, I had a chance to try the new Supercritical Redshift synth. For an analog synth, this had some really chiming, crystalline sounds on offer. A few steps away, we witnessed this great performance on the Haken Audio Continuum board, which has been on the forefront of MPE for years now. I really wanted to test the UDO Synths, but at this point my feet were sore and I was feeling really exhausted. So we headed back to the lakeside stage to witness this awesome performance of ambient electronica by Anushka Chetse and Robert Lippock. And I hope I did butcher the names here, sorry. Last, we checked out the Meyer EMI Vibes synthesizer. This is a 4-part multi-timbre 24-voice waveguide, virtual analog, wavetable and sample-based synthesizer that uses sound fonts, by the way. And to be honest, in my opinion, this was the nicest sounding synth I heard on the show floor this year. It's not really cheap, but clearly a lot of thought has gone into every aspect, like the user interface, selection of materials and so on. So definitely check out this one if you have the chance to do so. And that was that, my personal impressions from Superbooth 26. As usual, this was thrilling, exhausting, and fun. And it was really great to meet you in person there and to talk to you. See you next year.